Hello guys, welcome to a new video. This is going to be a video about the history of Shogi and also of how to play the game. So let's start. Shogi, or that is also known as Middle Shogi, is a strategy board game native to Japan. It is similar to modern Shogi and sometimes called Japanese chess in its rules and gameplay. However, Shogi, as far as we know, seems to have developed in the early 14th century as a derivative of Dai Shogi. There are early references, but we do not know any that date back to the date that we have talked about. With fewer pieces than Dai Shogi, this game is considered more exciting, and it was still played commonly in Japan between 1928 and 1939, especially in the Keihanshin region. The game largely died out after World War II, despite the advocacy of prominent shogi players such as Okazaki Shimei and Oyama Yasuharu, who in their youth played shogi when young and credited it with the development of their personal strategies and their cautious and tenacious style of play. In 1976 there were about 30 to 40 masters of the game, and the game has also gained more supporters in the West. There is even a society known as the Shogi Renmei, or the Japanese Shogi Association, and an online following in Japan. This is very important to note, as the game still is popular in a niche part of the Japanese society. Now that we have talked about the history of this great game, let's talk about the objective and how to win it. This is different from the previous video of Shogi, or the modern version, because in this variation you cannot drop back pieces after capturing them, unlike in modern Shogi. The objective is to capture the king, and if present, the prince, which counts as a replacement. The prince is the drunken elephant promoted. These two are the royal pieces, so if you want to win you will need to capture both of them and not only one of them. Or alternatively, under the rules of the Shogi Association, you can win by capturing all of the other pieces of the enemy and leaving the king bare or the prince. That makes setup for the objective of the game. Alternatively to these two methods, you can conclude the game early if it's time by using a point-based system, or also make a handicap on the game, and the rules are specified later on. So now, as you can see with the board setup, it is quite more complicated than normal Shogi. First of all, because it's a larger board, it is 12 by 12, and there is 28 moves that we need to remember for this, with 46. A set of 46 pieces with 21 different types. So, without further ado, let's talk about the pieces. So, we will have, in order, one king, one queen, one lion, two dragon knights, two dragon horses, two rooks, two bishops, one kirin, one phoenix, one drunk elephant, two blind tigers, two ferocious leopards, two gold generals, two silver generals, two copper generals, two vertical movers, two side movers, two reverse chariots, two lances and two go-betweens, and 12 pawns. So the moves are shown in the pieces above, in the video above, and the correct setup. There are a couple of exceptions that I would like to talk about. So the kirin, as we can see, has a strange movement pattern, the same as the phoenix. So the kirin can do either of two moves. it can jump to the second square in one of the 4 orthogonal directions. This is above, below and sideways. So it can jump 2 squares on either one of those directions, or it can move 1 square diagonally. And the Phoenix does the opposite. It can move 1 square above, below, right and left, and it can jump 2 squares diagonally. Then the next piece that I would like to talk about is the Horn Falcon, which is the promoted dragon horse. So it can do 2 things. The range move is that the Horn Falcon can move any number of free squares along a straight line in any direction except directly forwards, in which it can only move 1. By the use of the lion move, it can step or jump up to 2 squares along a line directly forward, potentially capturing 2 pieces. This power includes Igui and skipping a turn of the lion move, but not moving off the orthogonal. The Igui is a movement in which, due to the rule that you can move up to 2 times, 2 squares at a time, you can capture the piece in front of you and then go back to the same position that you had before. The Soaring Eagle, on the other hand, can move any number of free squares along a straight line in any direction except the forward diagonals, in which it will apply the lion move. It can either move 1 square or jump 2 squares, and come back if it wishes by the use of the special move Igui. But it cannot go off in a different direction, unlike the lion. So the lion has a whole set of specific rules that make it the most powerful and valuable piece in Shogi. The first of all is the area move and the double capture. The lion can take a step in any direction up to 2 per turn. So imagine the movement of the king, which means that it can move 1 square in every direction. The lion can do that up to 2 squares. And it can also change the direction. So it can, for instance, move 1 square forward and then go to the diagonal one, making the same move that a knight in chess would make. So it can go, for instance, 1 above and then 1 to the right if it wishes, which makes it very difficult to capture. Then the movement that we were talking about, Igui, translates to stationary feeding. This is the use of these 2 moves to capture a piece and go back to the same square that you were in originally. This can prove very useful later on the game when there are less pieces, because unlike in normal shogi, there is no piece drop, so all of your pieces are way more valuable. Then it can jump. The lion can jump anywhere that it could step on an empty board, that is, anywhere within a distance of 2 squares, except for the square that it started on. Okay, this is very important, otherwise it's an illegal move. Then the lion has specific rules to be captured, because it's a very important piece in the game. These rules are: the capture of the lion will be forbidden in these situations. A lion cannot capture a non-adjacent other lion, i.e. on another square. So when it could be captured on the next move, unless it captures something substantial, such as something else than a pawn or a go-between, together with a lion in a double capture. Such a double capture is called tsukegi or kuiso, which is called additional eating, and recapturing that lion is called shishi, or shooting it. A non-lion cannot capture a lion when in the immediately preceding move a lion was captured by a non-lion on another square. So this basically means that trading a lion for a lion is forbidden. That's the most important rule that we have to remember. So, just to reiterate and make it clear, the rules to capture a lion have two parts. A lion is not allowed to capture a distant, non-neighboring lion that is protected. Okay? This is because it will violate the rule of the lion trade. Okay? A lion, though, can capture an unprotected lion from a distance to minimize the possibility of abusing the rule for offensive purposes. The second part that we were talking about is to discourage indirect trades. If a non-lion captures a lion, on the immediately following move, you are not allowed to do the same. So if you, for instance, have two lions next to each other and you capture one, you cannot capture the second one even if you can. So, answering an attack on your lion by a counter threat on this lion, making a trade is impossible to make it work, is illegal. Your lion will be captured and then you are not allowed to retaliate against his. This is to discourage very strongly this kind of behavior. However, there are no rules against capturing a lion that is at close range. But we have to remember that this is because it is usually not a trade. Because the lion can double move in such cases. So that guy makes it for the special rules regarding the more advanced pieces in Shogi. Now I am going to be talking about the kind of gameplay that is usually played, because it will make it easier to visualize how to play it. So in Shogi, the least valuable piece is the pawn, since you have 12 of them, and they can only step straight forward and capture that way too. In fact, all pieces always capture as they move in Shogi. In front of the pawns, the initial position contains two go-betweens that are positioned as outposts, which basically are bi-directional pawns. These are hardly worth anything, but are presumably there to help pacifying the opening positioning, since they will close the diagonals against the diagonal sliders of the enemy. With very few exceptions, Shogi uses mainly two move types: single steps to neighboring squares, or infinite range sliders that move arbitrarily far along orthogonals or diagonals until they encounter an obstruction, which can either be another piece, an enemy piece, or the limits of the board. The king moves exactly as in standard chess, which is one move in all of the 8 directions. The crown prince also moves in that way. The weaker two pieces that start on the back rank are basically handicapped kings, moving one step in most directions but not all. Their move patterns are very asymmetric, mostly aimed forward, but with different blind spots on the side or rear. For the drunken elephant, for instance, it can move one square in any direction but directly forward. However, these pieces can be very useful to build a fortress around the king, or doing a proper castling of it. However, when in the endgame there is way less number of pieces on the board, you can use the pieces of this fort to go out and get promoted to very strong pieces. The rank directly behind the pawns, as well as the edge files, contain the sliding pieces. The weakest of these are the lances in the corners, which move only forward, so they can never leave their starting file, but if they are not traded, they will finally be promoted to a white horse, which is a slider that can move diagonally forward to other files. The reversed chariot in front of them are similarly confined to their starting file, but can also withdraw along it. Together with the lances, they normally will form a nice battery, and they also promote to a piece that can move to other files. So there is always an interesting battle on the extreme flanks that you can use to break through the enemy. The third rank pieces do not suffer from confinement to a single file, rank or diagonal, but have moves in each of these two board dimensions. The side mover and the vertical mover suffer from quasi-confinement though, as they slide in one dimension, but excruciatingly slow in the orthogonal dimension. They promote to much stronger pieces. Basically, Queen missing moves along one file or one rank, which those are very mobile, even if limited. But especially the side mover will be very hard to promote, and can better be used to guard your own camp against intruders that try to get pieces promoted. So, as we have talked before, these are normally the best ways in which people play Chu Shogi. As we have said before, to win the game, you need either to capture the king and the crown prince if he's on the game, capture all of the pieces of the enemy, unless that would make you have a bear king or crown prince yourself, or you can also force the other player into a perpetual check in which he will lose the game, because a perpetual check is forbidden in Chu Shogi and there are no stalemates in the game. Also, I would like to make a special mention to another variant of Chu Shogi. This is its most popular one and is also a modern variant. This is known as the Heisei Chu Shogi. This is played on a more open board. 40% of the pieces are set aside at the setup and are held in reserve, and once during the game, a player may drop one of these into an empty square that is adjacent to a friendly piece. Captured pieces though do not come back into play, and the rest of the game is played as in regular Shogi, Chu Shogi. The pieces that are set aside are the lances, coppers, silvers, side movers, vertical movers, reverse chariots, kirin, and phoenix. As with dropped pieces in standard Shogi, the piece may not be dropped on a square from where it cannot move, such as a lance in the far rank. If dropped into the promotion zone, the piece may be promoted immediately on any subsequent move after that placement. As you can see in this setup, it is way more open and allows for more flexibility in a similar style to the small Shogi.